Wise man, the time has come for you to rest, quiet your mind, and open your heart. I know your last days have been long, but I also know how much you fear God, so come in and sit here with me. Because today, I want to speak to you about something that sustains all true prosperity: honesty. Here we are not only speaking of numbers or money, but of understanding what remains and what vanishes like smoke. Many men believe that stability is guaranteed by the amount of gold in their chests, but I tell you, it is not gold that sustains a man, it is integrity that sustains both the man and his gold. Let me guide you on this journey of wisdom. I will read the word for you, I will reflect with you on each passage, and at a certain moment we will pause to pray and let the Lord speak to our hearts. I do not want you to only listen, but to live this experience as if you were here right now by my side, contemplating this marvelous sky, hearing me speak just as I spoke to the men of my time. And for your stay here and communion with God to be deep, I will speak to you as if I were King Solomon himself, opening the scriptures and explaining what each word means for your practical life. It will be a living, real, and direct experience. Before we move forward, allow me to say a prayer for you. Lord, Father of all truth, open now the ears of the wise man who hears me. Purify his heart from every shadow of deceit. Strengthen his steps so that he may walk in integrity. Give him discernment to recognize the temptation of shortcuts and courage to choose the path of honesty. May his life prosper not through haste nor fraud, but through the faithfulness that pleases the Lord. May he enjoy the peace of a clean conscience and leave as his inheritance not only wealth, but an upright name and a memory of righteousness. Amen. And if you wish to receive my wisdom about prosperity, work, and life in righteousness before the Lord, to become a wise man, leave your like on this video and subscribe now to the channel. In this way you will continue to be by my side and hear my words that strengthen wise men like you, who seek not only prosperity, but also purpose and peace. Honesty is the invisible foundation of prosperity. Wise man, I want to begin this part by inviting you to open with me the book of Proverbs, chapter 11, from verse 1 to 6. I myself wrote, "Dishonest scales are detestable to the Lord, but accurate weights are his delight." The upright man is guided by his honesty, but those who walk in crooked paths end up falling into their own traps. Wealth will save no one on the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteous are sustained by the Lord, while the wicked will be destroyed by their own evil. What I wanted to teach here is simple. Every project that begins in deceit carries within itself the seed of its own ruin, but the man who walks in integrity has invisible foundations that sustain him even when the winds blow against him. I did not say, wise man, that the dishonest scale is only an economic problem, but rather a reflection of the heart. Fraud, lies, shortcuts, all these things seem small in the beginning, but they turn into cracks capable of bringing down entire houses. It is like a stone placed out of line in the foundation of a palace. Perhaps no one notices at first, but in time the whole structure leans and collapses. What sustains true prosperity is not only hard work, but the hidden justice in every decision. The upright man may have less than the dishonest one for a time, but what he has remains because it is built on truth. Let us now go to Proverbs chapter 15, verses 16 and 17. I said, "Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure with turmoil. Better is a simple meal of vegetables where love is than a rich feast full of hatred." What this means, wise man, is that the measure of the value of life is not in the quantity of what is accumulated, but in the quality of what is enjoyed. Better to sit at a humble table, but with peace and a clean conscience, than to eat the richest banquet under the weight of guilt or lies. When I wrote these words, I wanted you to see the contrast. The dishonest man always runs but never rests. The upright may walk slowly, but he walks in peace. For tranquility does not come from a full plate, but from a light soul. There are homes with abundance of food, but they lack laughter, they lack embraces, they lack sincere prayers. And there are houses with little, but the little becomes a banquet, because it is seasoned with joy and truth. You see, wise man, that honesty sustains not only wealth, but also relationships and bonds. I now want to read with you Proverbs chapter 16, from verse 8 to 11. I wrote, "Better a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. The heart of man makes plans, but the right answer comes from the Lord. Honest scales and accurate weights belong to him. All the weights in the bag are of his making." What I was revealing is that the true measure of success is not in accumulation, but in the righteousness that sustains each achievement. A man may plan, but only integrity opens the way for those plans to flourish under God's blessing. Understand this, wise man. Even when I spoke of measures and scales, I was not only speaking of trade, I was speaking of life. We all carry weights in our decisions, and if those weights are manipulated, sooner or later, dishonesty will demand a price. But when we stand in righteousness, even if it means earning less at first, we are in fact investing in a treasure that grows before God. The upright man may not be the fastest to prosper, but he is the one who remains standing when the storm arrives. Let us now move to Proverbs chapter 28, from verse 18 to 20. There I wrote, "Whoever walks in integrity will be kept safe, but whoever takes crooked paths will suddenly fall. He who works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who chases fantasies will have his fill of poverty. A faithful man will be richly blessed, but the one eager to get rich will not go unpunished." What I wanted to show here is that the haste of quick gain is the enemy of true prosperity. Constant, faithful, and honest work is what brings lasting fruit. See the difference, wise man, between working the land and chasing the wind. He who devotes himself to what is real, even with effort and sweat, will reap abundance. But he who spends his life in illusions and shortcuts ends up empty, tired, and frustrated. Integrity is not only about not stealing, but about refusing to trade consistency for shortcuts. The upright man is like a farmer who trusts the process. He plows, plants, waters, and waits. He knows the Lord honors perseverance, but also exposes falsehood. I want to finish this first cycle of reading in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, from verse 8 to 12. I said, "If you see the poor oppressed and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised. For one official is watched by a higher one, and still higher ones are over them. Whoever loves money never has enough, and whoever loves abundance is never satisfied with their income. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. Sweet is the sleep of the laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not let him sleep." What I wanted to teach was that peace does not come from the amount accumulated, but from the way life is lived. Notice with me, wise man, the irony of the human heart. He who chases dishonest wealth is never satisfied, always wanting more, always fearing loss. But the worker who sows with faithfulness, even if he has little, sleeps in peace. The difference is not in how much one possesses, but in how it was obtained. He who has integrity carries within himself rest and purpose. He who grows rich by deceit carries with him fear and unrest. And so I tell you, the prosperity that remains is invisible. It is in the clean heart and the clear conscience, not merely in full storehouses. Wise man, let me share with you something that many are deceived into believing, that small shortcuts do not matter. Some tell themselves, it is just a little lie, just a detail in the contract. No one will notice. But I affirm to you, it is exactly these small breaches that destroy great walls. Fraud disguised as insignificant opens the door to ruin. Just as a small crack in the stone of a palace may seem irrelevant, but over time causes the whole structure to lean, so it is with integrity. What you call a detail today may be the very weight that topples your greatest dreams tomorrow. When a wise man looks at his own life, he understands that every choice is a brick in his building. If that brick is crooked, the whole structure suffers. It is no wonder I repeated so many times that justice protects, but deceit imprisons. Those who believe that the shortcut works do not realize they are undermining the foundation of their own future. For what is built without truth is already born condemned to fall. Now I want to bring this closer to your practical life. Think about the contracts you sign, the partnerships you form, the promises you make. How many businesses begin well but rot because the word was not kept? How many homes live in heavy silence because a man said what he never intended to fulfill? The dishonest man lives trying to prove what he is not, and the weight of this mask produces what you now call imposter syndrome. He fears being exposed, he fears his false image collapsing, and therefore he never finds rest. There is also the constant fear of failure. The man who seeks to grow rich by shortcuts lives in insecurity, for he knows he built on sand. The upright man may have less, but he walks confidently because he knows that what he has was built on the rock of honesty. The dishonest may even sleep on golden beds, but his mind finds no rest. The righteous man, even in simplicity, rests peacefully because he does not fear the exposure of the truth. Let us now open together in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, from verse 10 to 20. I wrote that whoever loves money will never be satisfied with it, and whoever loves abundance will never be content with their income. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And I also said, it is a gift from God when a man can enjoy the fruit of his labor and rejoice in it, for that is the true reward. What I wanted to teach is that wealth without purpose is vanity, but honesty in work transforms even the little into a divine gift. Moving forward to Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verses 1 through 12, I said that a good name is better than precious perfume, and the day of death is better than the day of birth, because the upright name remains, while the fragrance of fleeting riches dissipates. And I completed. Wisdom is a shelter as money is a shelter, but the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who possess it. What I wanted to show here, wise man, is that the true inheritance is not a full vault, but a clean reputation that crosses generations. Now turn back with me to Proverbs chapter 21, verses 5 through 7. I wrote that well-planned steps lead to abundance, but haste leads to poverty. The dishonest reap violence because their own choices destroy them. And what I was saying here is this: the patience of the upright builds the future, but the haste of the dishonest digs their own pit. There is also a word from my father David that I cannot fail to remember. In Psalm chapter 37, from verse 16 to 20, he wrote, "Better the little of the righteous than the abundance of many wicked. For the Lord sustains the righteous, but the wicked will be destroyed." See how this heritage of wisdom repeats itself in me and in my father. Little with righteousness is a treasure greater than much with deceit. And we cannot forget what is in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 13 to 16. The law said, "Do not have two differing measures in your bag, one large and one small. Always use honest and accurate weights, for the Lord detests dishonest measures." What Moses wanted to teach the people is that dishonesty does not only harm your neighbor, but it directly offends the holiness of God. In other words, integrity is a blessing that reaches not only you, but also your generation. Here is a revelation that breaks patterns. It is not money that brings peace, it is a clean conscience. The man who grows rich by deceit carries the weight of being discovered, and even with much, he is never satisfied. But the righteous man, even if he has little, lives in rest. He sleeps in peace, eats with gratitude, rejoices in small victories. For the greatest wealth is not in the pocket, but in the tranquility of the soul. So I ask you, in what area of your life have you been using shortcuts? Where does your conscience find no rest? Examine the contracts you signed, the words you gave, the promises you failed to keep. Make an inventory of your integrity. If something is out of alignment, wise man, this is the moment to correct it. For God honors the one who repents and returns to the path of honesty. What remains is the wealth that is born of truth, not of fraud. Now, wise man, I want us to take together a brief spiritual pause. I will leave you with your thoughts for a while. Breathe deeply and allow the sound of my night here to create silence within you. Ask yourself, is there any area of your life where you have chosen shortcuts? Is there any weight of dishonesty that needs to be confessed before God? Close your eyes and surrender this to the Lord right now. Pray asking for forgiveness, or simply meditate on everything I have told you so far. And if you want, take this time to write your prayer request here in the comments. Say your name, your city, or your state if you prefer, and what your current struggle is. Here we are, a brotherhood of wise men, and there will be someone to pray for you. And where two or more gather in prayer, the Lord is present to hear and to act. I will return in a few seconds. The temptation of quick gain versus the rhythm of harvest. Let us now open in Proverbs chapter 28 and walk with me from verse 6 to 20. There I wrote that better is the poor who walks in integrity than the rich who walks in crooked ways. I also said that he who works faithfully will be filled with blessings, but whoever runs after quick riches will not go unpunished. What I wanted to show is this very clear contrast. There are men who possess much money but are miserable in peace, and there are simple men who possess little but carry within themselves a treasure that gold cannot buy, which is dignity. Wise man, learn this with me. The prosperity that lasts is not born of haste, but of faithfulness. I also want to read in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 from verse 18 to 26. There I poured out about the weight of work when a man seeks only to accumulate. I said, I hated all the labor I had under the sun because I would have to leave it to the one who came after me, and I did not know if he would be wise or foolish. And I continued, that everything becomes vanity when effort has no purpose. But I ended by affirming, it is a gift of God when a man can enjoy the fruit of his labor, for that is a present from the Lord. Here is the difference. Wealth without purpose is a burden. Wealth with purpose is a gift. Moving further, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verses 9 to 15, I declared that there is a time for all things, and that God made everything beautiful in its time. I added that there is nothing better for man than to rejoice in his work, for this is a gift from the Lord. What does this mean? That haste will never be a blessing because the wise man understands there is a time to plant and a time to reap, and that the harvest never comes on the same day as the sowing. Let us now return to Proverbs chapter 10 verses 2 to 7. There I said that treasures gained dishonestly are of no benefit, but righteousness delivers from death. I also affirmed that the Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he frustrates the craving of the wicked. Notice how here I was already showing the divine pattern. What is built in righteousness remains, but what is born of deceit dissolves like sand between the fingers. Still in Proverbs chapter 20 verses 17 to 21, I wrote that bread gained by fraud may taste sweet, but afterward it fills the mouth with gravel. And I also said, inheritance obtained too quickly will not be blessed in the end. Here I was revealing a hard truth. Shortcuts may seem sweet at the beginning, but in the end they leave a bitter taste. The man who runs after haste is always digging his own ruin. And for you to see how this message applies in every area, let us now go to the Song of Songs, chapter 1, verses 5 to 7. There I described the experience of someone who, even having been forced to take care of others' vineyards, did not neglect the value of their own work. What I wanted to teach is that dignity is not in the position you occupy, but in the honor with which you fulfill what has been entrusted to you. Working with dignity is what gives eternal weight to effort. Notice how the trap of haste is subtle. The anxiety for immediate results, the desire to prove worth or to achieve status makes many throw themselves into risky decisions. Men go into debt to show power they do not have. Women sacrifice the rest of their homes to sustain an image that quickly falls apart. This pursuit of quick recognition is like chasing the wind. It tires, but takes you nowhere. The wise man does not live to prove who he is. He lives to honor the Lord with each step. Understand this with me. The farmer does not plant a seed today and expect to harvest tomorrow. He waters, he waits, he trusts in God's timing. In the same way, you will not see immediate return in every investment, every effort, every choice. But if you remain faithful, the harvest will come. Wise man, apply this metaphor in your practical life, in your career, in your business, in your relationships. Do not seek shortcuts to reach what only time and faithfulness can bring. For patience in the harvest protects against ruin and ensures that when abundance comes, you will have the structure to sustain it. Let us now open in Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7. There I wrote that true love is as strong as death, that jealousy is as relentless as the grave, and that many waters cannot quench this fire. I also added, if someone were to offer all the wealth of his house to buy this love, it would be utterly despised. What I wanted to show is that what is born genuine, whether in love or in friendship, cannot be bought or forged by dishonest shortcuts. It is like a fire lit by God Himself. No river can put it out. Let us move to Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 4 to 12. There I observed that often human effort is born only from envy of a neighbor, and that this too is vanity. But I continued saying, two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. I also affirmed, if one falls, the other lifts him up, and a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Here I was teaching that solid bonds, whether in work or at home, cannot be built on lies. They are established in truth, in companionship, and in justice. I also want to read to you in Proverbs chapter 28 from verses 22 to 28. There I showed that the man with an evil eye runs after quick riches, but does not realize that misery will come upon him. And I also said that when the wicked multiply, transgression increases, but the righteous will see their downfall. It is as if I were warning, he who seeks shortcuts to get rich does not realize that haste itself is the trap that will make him fall. And I cannot fail to bring the words of my father David in Psalm chapter 112 from verse 1 to 10. He declared, "Blessed is the man who fears the Lord and who greatly delights in his commandments. He said that his descendants will be mighty in the land and that wealth and prosperity will be in his house." And he completed, "The righteous will never be shaken. His memory will be eternal." What my father wanted to teach is that true blessing is not only in what is accumulated, but in the inheritance of integrity that remains from generation to generation. Moving now to Proverbs chapter 3, from verses 13 to 18. There I wrote that blessed is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding. I also said that she is more precious than rubies, and that from her right hand comes long life, and from her left riches and honor. I added that her ways are pleasant, and all her paths are peace. Wise man, notice, wisdom is a tree of life to those who embrace her, and in her lies the wealth that does not decay. And to close this sequence, I will read in Exodus chapter 23, verses 1 to 9, where Moses delivered the Lord's law about justice. He commanded not to spread false reports, not to follow the majority in doing evil, not to accept bribes, for a bribe blinds even those who have open eyes and perverts the words of the righteous. See how justice is a non-negotiable principle. It is not only for courtrooms, but for every detail of daily life. Wise man, let me now open your understanding to something profound. Even in love and in friendship, when dishonest shortcuts are sought, whether a lie, manipulation, or a promise that one does not intend to keep, the bond becomes fragile. It may look strong on the outside, but inside it is already corroded. The love that is bought soon falls apart. The friendship that is sustained by convenience does not endure time. Integrity, therefore, is not only for business and contracts, but also for embraces, covenants, and promises of faithfulness. Reflect with me, both in money and in relationships, what is born of deceit does not last. It may shine for a moment, but soon loses its value. But what is transparent, even if it seems small, has the strength to cross generations. That is why I invite you. Value clear processes, honest conversations, true commitments. Choose the path that takes longer, but that endures. For it is better to reap little with peace and dignity than to reap much with the weight of a guilty conscience and broken bonds. The legacy of the upright man. Let us now open in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 17. There I wrote that bread gained through fraud may taste sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be filled with gravel. What I wanted to show is that dishonest gain deceives at first, but becomes unbearable in the end. Already in Proverbs chapter 22, verses 1 to 4, I affirmed that it is far better to have a good name than great riches, and that esteem is worth more than silver and gold. And I completed, the fear of the Lord brings reward, and with it come true wealth, honor, and life. Do you see how I was teaching that the inheritance of those who walk in integrity is not measured in vaults, but in respect and dignity? Now let me also read in Proverbs chapter 27, verses 23 to 27. There I advised, know well the condition of your flocks and give careful attention to your herds, for wealth does not endure forever, nor does a crown pass from generation to generation. I added that when the hay is removed and new growth appears, there will be lambs to provide you with clothing, goats to buy a field, and plenty of milk to sustain your family and your servants. Wise man, what I meant is that true security is not in dishonest accumulation, but in faithfully managing what God has placed in your hands. I will also go to Proverbs chapter 12, verses 17 to 22. There I wrote that he who speaks the truth declares righteousness, but a false witness produces deceit. I said that there are words that wound like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. I added that lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. Notice the seriousness. Lying may generate momentary profit, but it always leaves scars. Truth, on the other hand, may cost dearly at first, but it produces trust, respect, and peace. And in Proverbs chapter 19, verses 1 to 9, I left written, better is the poor who walks in integrity than the fool with perverse and senseless lips. I also affirmed that a false witness will not go unpunished, and that he who breathes out lies will perish. What I wanted to teach is simple. A man may escape human eyes for a while, But before God, fraud never goes unnoticed. The dishonest condemns himself, while the upright, though poor, is exalted. Many believe that prosperity is only about accumulation. But wise man, true wealth is not counted in coins, but in memories, in trust, in a name that remains clean before God and men. He who thinks inheritance is only leaving houses, land, and full vaults for his children is mistaken. For if the name is stained, wealth becomes a burden. The legacy of one who lived dishonestly is shame, and the memory of his name quickly fades. But the upright man, even if he leaves little in material goods, leaves a wealth that cannot be lost in any crisis, the honor of his name. That is why I say to you, if you are a father, guard the name your children will carry. If you are a leader, guard the trust your followers place in you. If you are a businessman, guard the reputation of your word and your dealings. For an upright name is a treasure that cannot be corroded by inflation, nor lost in wars, nor stolen by thieves. The wise man understands that his greatest inheritance is not what he keeps in vaults, but what he inscribes in the memory of his family, his friends, and even his adversaries. The upright name is like a deep root. No one can pull it out. It is a treasure that is not lost in crises, but multiplies in every generation. There is a psalm of my father David that I want to read to you now. In Psalm 37, from verse 16 to 26, he wrote that better is the little of the righteous than the abundance of many wicked. He explained that the arms of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord sustains the righteous. He also said that the righteous have their inheritance forever, and even in times of famine they will not be ashamed, for the Lord does not forsake them. Wise man, what my father was teaching is that the foundation of security is not quantity, but faithfulness. The wicked may seem to prosper, but their abundance dissolves. The righteous, though having little, enjoy the protection of God. Now come back with me to Proverbs chapter 24, from verse 23 to 34. There I wrote that it is not good to show partiality in judgment, that the righteous must rebuke the wicked, and that whoever is lazy will see his vineyard overgrown with thorns and his wall in ruins. What I wanted to show is that justice and diligence walk together. It is no use being just if you neglect the care of what has been entrusted to you, nor being diligent if you deal dishonestly. Already in Proverbs chapter 25, verses 11 to 15, I said that a word spoken in due season is like apples of gold in settings of silver, and that a gentle tongue can break bones. This means that integrity is not only about not stealing or deceiving, but also about using honest words that build and bring life. I also want to recall what is in Psalm chapter 15, where my father David asked, "Lord, who shall dwell in your tabernacle? Who shall live on your holy hill?" And he answered, "He who walks uprightly practices righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart." Notice, wise man, that it is not the amount of gold that defines who draws near to God, but the integrity of life and the truth within. I will add what I wrote in Proverbs 27:17-27, where I said that as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, and that knowing well the state of your flock is the key to security. Honesty also manifests in relationships, transparent bonds, solid friendships, and responsibility with what is ours. And I cannot fail to bring to memory what is in Leviticus chapter 19, verses 9 to 18. There Moses delivered the Lord's law that said, "Do not steal, do not deceive, do not use dishonest measures, do not oppress your neighbor, and do not harbor hatred in your heart. On the contrary, love your neighbor as yourself." What this shows is that integrity is not only a business practice, but a commandment of love. It is not possible to be upright before God and dishonest with people, just as it is not possible to say that one loves God and hates his brother. Wise man, I want to reveal to you something that seems counterintuitive. Abundance gained unjustly is a curse. It is a weight that oppresses. It is wealth that turns into shame. But the little gained with truth becomes multiplied blessing. The unjust sleeps in fear, even surrounded by luxury. The righteous rests in peace, even if he has only what is necessary. The unjust needs to guard his treasures, for he fears losing them. The righteous shares his little with joy, for he knows the source is the Lord. The logic of the world says that more is always better, but the logic of the kingdom affirms that better is little with righteousness than much with dishonesty. That is why I invite you to live according to the logic of the kingdom. Do not be deceived by the glitter of dishonest abundance. Choose a clean reputation, firm purpose, and peace in the heart as eternal riches. When the name is upright, it crosses generations. When the purpose is just, it flourishes even in barren land. When the peace of God rules the heart, no gold can compare. The wise man knows that these are the incorruptible riches that neither time nor men can steal. The incorruptible prosperity. Wise man, we have reached the end of this journey. I want you to keep in your heart everything we have heard and meditated on together. From the beginning I said, dishonest gain is fleeting, honest wealth remains. Now you can clearly see that dishonesty is like smoke. It appears for a moment but soon dissipates, leaving only emptiness. But wealth built with integrity is like a firm root. It may not be immediately visible, but it sustains trees that give shade and fruit for generations. In work, in daily choices, and in relationships, integrity is the only seed that never rots. The world may applaud the quick, the cunning, the one who conquers with shortcuts, but before God, it is the faithful who remain. The upright man may not have the gold of the world, but he has the peace of lying down without fear, the respect of those around him, and the joy of a clean heart. As I said, honest wealth is a blessing. Dishonest wealth is an unbearable burden. Therefore, I summon you, wise man, to live with this awareness. Do not allow your heart to be seduced by haste or by fleeting glitter. Live with integrity before God, so that your prosperity may be true, honoring the Lord and leaving a legacy of trust and a clean name for those who will come after you. For this is incorruptible prosperity, that which transcends time and remains forever. And if this word has found a dwelling place in your life, do not keep it only for yourself. Apply every counsel, live with diligence, and share it with other men and women who need to hear. Spread the wisdom you have received, because it is not enough to listen. It is necessary to practice and to multiply. Be a wise man, be light in your home, be steadfastness in your work, be an example of honesty wherever the Lord places you. And remain with me in these rich moments of rest, for there are still many counsels I wish to share, so that you may continue growing as a true wise man before God.